Hi, this is Mark Birch, and today I'm going to be providing analysis of Carol Ann Duffy's We Remember Your Childhood Well. Published in The Other Country in 1990, the poem's written in the form of a dramatic monologue, written from the perspective of a parent addressing their grown-up child. The child has clearly made a number of allegations about the way they were treated as a child, allegations that the reader has to infer, as the dramatic monologue only allows the voice of the parent to be heard. Duffy has rendered the child voiceless, complementing the sense of their weakness and vulnerability. The dramatic monologue form also, conversely, reinforces the power of the parental voice, as it's the only one heard. The title itself represents the power dynamics in the relationship. The plural pronoun we refers to the two parents, whose plurality gives them more power and credence over the single your. The implication is that while the parents remember the past well, the child does not. One of the concerns of the poem is who should be believed. The poem is written in 6 tercets, the odd number of lines perhaps representing the disharmony that dominates the poem. This is complemented by the many short sentences that create a staccato, tense rhythm. The first stanza begins in media res, immediately providing a sense of uncertainty as the reader is given no orientation to the poem's narrative. The poem is full of rejections of implied allegations, the first of which is particularly disturbing. Nobody hurt you. Physical injury or pain doesn't seem like the kind of thing to be misremembered, and it therefore casts doubt over the parental refutations from the outset. The word nobody is used 6 times across the poem. Using this indefinite pronoun is colloquial and seems a realistic representation of speech as a result. However, the pronoun also gives a sense of the thing actually happening, as the sentence takes the active form. It's worth comparing this to the passive, you were not hurt by anybody. The effect of the anaphora created by so many sentences beginning with this pronoun is to reinforce that these kinds of events happened, despite the word itself denoting an absence of an agent. The vagueness that may represent gaslighting the child is also to be found in the use of other indefinite pronouns, somebody, anyone, none, that litter the poem. The bad man on the moors, that the poetic voice dismisses as only a movie you saw, may again undermine the credibility of this voice. The line could be read as an allusion to Ian Brady, the bad man who killed 5 children between 1963 and 1965, and who would have been a very real threat to a child. Duffy would have been around 10 years old when Brady and Hindley, the Moors murderers, were arrested. The powerful impact of the threat that they posed is also described in Duffy's poem In Mrs. Tilcher's Class, published in the same collection. An internal rhyme is created between saw and door, creating a phonological connection between the 2 sentences. Perhaps Duffy is connecting the scepticism of the persona's claim regarding the film and that of the claim regarding the locked door. Essentially, if one of the parents' refutations of the child's claims seems doubtful, it may cast all the subsequent refutations into doubt. The second tercet offers a range of denials, but focuses on what appears to be a moment in childhood when there was an audition or performance of some kind. You couldn't sing anyway, seems like a harsh parental criticism. Following this with the phrase, cared less, suggests that the child didn't care about the performance, something difficult to reconcile with whatever criticism elicits this denial. The metaphor, the moment's a blur, suggests that it's difficult to remember. This claim doesn't seem to be directed at the child, but more generally, as supported by the phrase, anyone's guess. However, despite this uncertainty of recollection, the parental voice shows no hesitation in asserting the truth of their account through statements like, that didn't occur, and you couldn't sing, conveying a sense of the poetic voice's arrogance. A film fun is likely to be a reference to the comic of the same name, that was published until 1962 when Duffy was 7 years old. This comic was based around celebrities in the entertainment field and would be likely to function as a means for children to idolise their entertainment heroes. The image of film fun laughing itself to death in the coal fire suggests that an edition of the comic with a representation of laughter on the cover has been thrown on the fire. Perhaps the comic was destroyed by the parents as a perceived bad influence on the child. Laughing itself to death draws upon the idiom to die laughing, generally meaning to laugh for a long time. Here, however, it takes a more sinister form as the image of laughter dies in the flames. The half-rhyme between death and guess in this line creates a connection between these ideas, suggesting that the parents believe it is anyone's guess who's responsible for the destruction of the comic. The connection may also undermine the credibility of their claim, given that the destruction of film fun was so clearly described. The third stanza seems to continue the gaslighting of the child, forcing her to question her own sanity by stating, "The whole thing is inside your head." Photographic evidence is cited in defence of the parental perspective. They were all smiling and waving in the photos, and must, therefore, have been happy. Of course, a photo only captures a moment, and it's often a moment of forced levity that follows the command, "Smile!" The parallelism in "look at you, look at us" forces the child to compare the image of themselves to that of the rest of the family. The parallelism represents a syntactic similarity that conveys the view of the parent. They and the child look happy, so must, they claim, have been happy about that whole day. Parallelism is also employed in the first line of stanza 4. What you recall are impressions, we have the facts, which contrasts the power of the two parties. The parents present themselves as holders of knowledge, while the child's perspectives are dismissed as unreliable impressions. The power of the parents is reinforced through "we called the tune," an idiom that represents authority. This power is stressed through the anaphora of "we," as those who hold the authority are stressed through the repetition. The parents are metaphorically described as the secret police of your childhood. Secret police tend to operate in authoritarian regimes, so again this suggests an abuse of power by the parents. The series of comparative adjectives, older, wiser, and bigger, all demean the child through the unfavourable comparisons, but it's particularly menacing to end on bigger, given the implication that authority could be asserted through physical size. The imperative call asserts power that's also conveyed in the onomatopoeic representation of those voices, boom, boom, boom. These sounds are loud and explosive, representing danger and overwhelming power. It seems that parental power was manifest through shouting. The fifth stanza explores a time when the child stayed with another family. Even the parental voice appears to lack confidence in their claims when Duffy uses the verb seemed. The other family are described as firm, which may be a euphemism for harsh, particularly as firm usually collocates fair, yet Duffy omits this adjective, following firm with fear. The final stanza begins with, "What does it matter now?" a dismissive response that seems ironic given how much all of this clearly matters to the character of the child. The skid marks represent the childhood shame of soiled underwear. These are used to metaphorically refer to the signs of sin. The Catholic sensibility that Duffy herself would have been exposed to as a child is referenced here. Given everything that's gone before, it doesn't seem as if the parent is reassuring the child that there are no skid marks of sin that will send her to hell, but rather that nobody left them there apart from herself. As stated in the previous stanza, there was none but yourself to blame. The use of the past tense in "you were loved" may imply that she is loved no longer, although the holophrastic sentence "always" is added as an apparent afterthought. Its function as such is evident from the word's isolation on the next line. The cyclical structure of the poem, using the title as the final sentence, leaves the reader with an ominous sense of the parental voice exploiting their power to reassert their version of the truth. It's possible to read the poem as a criticism of the thankless role of a parent, and the way in which a child's memories are flawed, but I'm not convinced, particularly since the dramatic monologue form is so frequently used by Duffy to expose the failings of the poetic voice. It's also been suggested that the poem functions as a political allegory, exploring the effects of information control, but the poem seems powerful enough when functioning on an intensely personal level. Okay, ta.